It's 6 p.m. on Wednesday, April 23rd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Conn-young.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us.
It's been 1 week now since a nearly 7,000-ton Sewol-ho ferry sank into waters with more than 470 people on board. Now, 150 have been confirmed dead so far, and that figure continues to rise by the hour, it seems, as more bodies are retrieved from the sunken vessel.
More than 150 remain unaccounted for. Search and rescue operations ongoing in high gear day and night. Unfortunately, not a single survivor has been found since the day of the accident.
Right, as the entire nation mourns the loss of those who were on board this ill-fated ferry, Korean authorities are broadening their investigation on what exactly happened on the day of the ferry capsize and who is responsible for this man-made disaster.
To find out more, we connect live with our Yurian. She is standing by at our newsroom. Rian, the prosecutors continue to investigate the crew members and captain of the Sewol-ho. Possible charges include ones related to fleeing the ship without trying to save the remaining passengers. Could you tell us more?
That's right. As you may remember, all 15 crew members left the doomed Sewol-ho ferry, and it seems, looking at the unfolding investigation, all of them may face charges. The investigation is expanding quickly, and now 11 of the 15 have been charged. That, of course, includes the captain, who has been detained since last Saturday and is charged with 5 offenses, including negligence of duty and violating ship crew law. The investigators are now looking into whether he and his crew members can be charged with what's called murder by omission. That refers to death caused by inaction of the defendant. The investigators will have to decide whether the captain and his crew willfully took flight from the ship, not caring whether the remaining passengers lived or died. Now, 4 of the crew members undergoing intense investigation have conveyed severe psychological distress and are now receiving medical treatment in the hospital.
Leon, not only the captain and the crew, but the ferry operator, which is the Cheonghaejin Marine Company, is also under fire. Tell us more.
That's right. The prosecutors seem to think the fundamental reason for the sinking of the Sewol-ho ferry lies with its operator. Now, earlier this week, officials from the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries had said the Cheonghaejin Marine Company was negligent regarding safety checks on the ferry. Investigators are looking into the possibility that the practical owner, Yoo Byung-on, lobbied his way into getting out of those safety checks. A joint investigation team earlier today raided some 10 offices and home of Yoo, as well as the headquarters of the Cheonghaejin Marine Company here in Seoul. Also, Yoo's 2 sons are the biggest shareholders of the ferry's operating company, and the whole family has been banned from traveling out of the country since this past Sunday. We'll continue to bring you more updates in our later newscasts.
Down off Korea's southwestern coast, search and rescue operations are in its 8th day. Our correspondents are at Paekmokang Harbor, roughly 20 kilometers from the site of the ship Capsize.
Hwang Sung-hee and Ji Myung-gil joins us live from the nearest port from the accident site. Sung-hee, Myung-gil, dozens of bodies were retrieved in the search operations overnight, but still no word of a single survivor.
That's right. We are into our 8th day of search and rescue operations, but not a single survivor has been found since the day of the capsizing. However, the confirmed death toll continues to rise by the hour. Now, most of the bodies recovered today turned out to be high school students, and we still have around 150 people missing inside the sunken ship, and 90% of them, nearly 90% of those, are believed to be students from Tanwon High School. Now, the families of the missing camping out out here at the Pengmokang Harbor are clinging onto their last shred of hope, but they are growing restless. And Myung-gil, I believe that you had a chance to talk to a father of one of the missing students.
Yes, that's true, Sung-hye. I got a chance to talk to a father who lost his son on the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. He said that when he first received the news, he was assured by Danon High School that his son was alive. He remains one of the missing.
My son was very gentle. He was a quiet boy and never disobeyed us. He would listen to all the things we would say to him as parents. He was very diligent and thoughtful. My son, I feel really sorry for the things I wasn't able to give you. Although sometimes I scolded you. That was because I loved you so much. I love you, Chung-min. It's heartbreaking to think of the horror you must have gone through.
The father said he wanted the sunken ferry to be lifted to the surface as soon as possible so that he could see his 18-year-old son for one last time.
Yes, search and rescue operations are ongoing, and the rescue team says they will focus their search on the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel. Now, that's where the cabins are, and authorities believe that this is where most passengers would have been at the time of the sinking, and that was backed up by one of the passengers who was on the Sewol-ho ferry. Let's take a listen.
I was rescued early, so I don't know the current situation. But based on what I saw, there were students on the 3rd and 4th floors, where the cabins are. They were told to wait, and that's why it became too late to rescue them.
Now, he was one of the first to be rescued when the ship started to list, but his wife still remains missing inside the sunken ship.
That's right. 50 divers are working simultaneously using barges to search the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel, like you said. More than 200 rescue ships, 34 aircraft, and 550 divers are continuing their rescue operations. Unfortunately, high-tech drones like the remotely operated vehicles did not yield much results.
It's been a week since the tragedy, and messages of support for those still missing inside the sunken ship arrived here at the Pengmokang Harbor from across the nation. Now the messages read that we love you all and that miracles will happen. This was Pang Sung-hee and Ji Myung-gil reporting from Pengmokang Harbor.
Well, it's been a devastating and torturous week for the families of the missing, with nothing to do but wait for any news of their sons and daughters who are on board the ill-fated ferry.
The families have been staying at a auditorium near the accident site in Jindo, where Hwang Ji-hye joins us live. Ji-hye, from what I can tell from here, it looks like the number of people gathered in the auditorium has decreased significantly.
Right, Conn-young. The number of families are actually getting smaller and smaller as more bodies are being discovered and identified. The families are leaving to tend to their families at Pengmokang Harbor and to the hospitals. The people left here are going back and forth from the gymnasium to the harbor about 2 times a day. As soon as the families confirm that the recovered bodies are their children, they rush out of the gymnasium looking very shaky and horrified. A representative of the families just said that they will be able to use helicopters to move the bodies from Pengmokang Harbor to hospitals. The families are near exhaustion both physically and mentally after waiting their loved ones for more than a week. The atmosphere is very heavy here, with many of the families just helplessly looking at a television screen showing a list of descriptions of the newly discovered bodies. This has been Hwang Ji-hye reporting live from Jindo Gymnasium.
The entire nation is mourning the abrupt loss of so many lives. Koreans are holding candlelight vigils, making donations on and offline, and really trying to cope with this tragic incident together.
And in Ansan, the city that's hardest hit by this tragedy, a memorial service is taking place to pay tribute to the young victims from Danwon High School. We have our Kim Ji-yeon joining us live from the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall. Ji-yeon.
Daniel, Conn-young, I'm standing here at the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall, where an altar was set up so that the public can say their last goodbyes to the fallen. And as you can see, that more than 3,600 people have come here today to pay their respects for the fallen. This is a temporary altar, but portraits of 48 Conn-young high school students and teachers are displayed. Local authorities are setting up a funeral in a larger location as more bodies are expected to arrive in the coming days. A group funeral will be arranged in Arirang Recreation Center so that the public can pay their respects starting Tuesday.
Jian, setting up a memorial altar must require a lot of help, and from what I hear, a lot of volunteers are chipping in.
Citizens from Ansan and volunteers from all around the nation are coming here to lend a helping hand and bringing necessities and medical supplies.
To help support our community in this time of need, we have made all of our medicine and resources available to Danwon High School, and will continue to do so until the altar is removed.
This could not have been possible without the help of the community. We can see that the nation is coming together in times of crisis.
Our hearts go out to all the victims and their families, of course. Now, Jian, what about the student survivors? Are they going home soon?
Yes, a majority of the students are to be discharged later this week, but some of the guardians of the students said that they expressed concerns about the mental trauma, so they wanted them to stay at the hospital. In the high school, around 50 counselors are on standby for the students, and they will receive regular counseling sessions, and if needed, medication as well. This was Kim Ji-yeon live from Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall.
The families of the Sewol-ho ferry's victims have gone through more than a week now of excruciating pain and sorrow.
The nation has rallied around them, with thousands volunteering their time over the past week to help them in their time of need. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports from Jindo.
At times of great loss, people come together. Korea is a nation in despair, and the pain felt among victims' families is unimaginable. To help them in the most difficult time, hundreds of firms and thousands of volunteers have come down to the Jindo area to do what they can.
We started providing meals on April 16th. We have around 100 volunteers and feed around 700 people a day.
We came here on the day of the incident. We make sure all the supplies, like instant noodles, bread, and other things, don't run out of stock. We are serving approximately 2,000 to 3,000 people per day.
The services are free of charge.
We not only provide medical service to victims' families, but also to volunteers, the press, and civilian divers, amongst others.
Volunteers are signing up daily all around the country. Nearly 8,000 people volunteered since the tragic incident on April 16th to show their support and help the victim's family in their time of need. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Jindo.
14 teachers from Danwon High School were on this ill-fated trip to the resort island of Jeju when the Sewol-ho ferry sank. On that Wednesday, when the ferry capsized, 3 teachers were rescued while 11 remained unaccounted for.
One of those teachers who didn't make it was more concerned about her students than herself until the very end. Chun Soo-young is her name, and our Connie Lee has her story.
In the last desperate moments before the ship was going down, a daughter texts her mother, "Mom, the ship is sinking." In shock and in confusion, the mother calls her daughter, Chun Soo-young, right away.
얼른 구명조끼 입어 이렇게 했거든요. 그랬더니 엄마, 학생들은 입었어 이렇게 얘기를 하는 거예요. 그 말은 제가 지금 생각해 보면 학생들은 입혔는데 저는 못 입었다는 얘기죠.
To her boyfriend, Soo-young texts him that there are no life vests. "I'm sorry." The boyfriend calls her immediately, but they hang up after 12 seconds on the line. Soo-young tells him that she needs to call her students' parents.
배가 기울고 있는데 애들 빨리 입히고 챙겨야 된다고 그러더니 자기 배터리 없다고 지금 학부모 연락하고 애들 챙겨야 된다고 그러더니 끊는 거예요.
Her last words to her boyfriend, I love you and thank you. It was Soo-young's second year as a homeroom teacher at Danwon High School. And as for the school's yearly field trip, this one to Jeju Island on the Sewol-ho ferry was her first. Her room remains untouched since the day she left for the ill-fated trip. Her bike, too, remains parked, waiting for Soo-young to return. Apparently, her grandmother is also waiting for her granddaughter to come home safely.
지금도 그 할머니는 우리 저 딸이 살아있는 줄 아세요. 뱃속에 들어있어서 안전하다고 그러시거든요. 계속 그렇게 믿고 계세요.
But as much as there is sadness over the loss, her mother is also proud of her daughter, who put the lives of her students before her own. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Now, with a mounting list of errors that appear to have contributed to the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, the safety precautions or lack thereof and lax regulation of businesses have come into question.
We are going to try and get a better sense of what international or global safety standards are and what kind of safety inspections a ferry with cargo need to go through before embarking on a journey.
For that, Captain John Noble joins us via or on the line. He is the director of UK-based Constellation Marine Services and has 30 years of experience. Captain John Noble, thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Let's start with the safety inspections for ferry before heading out to sea. Now, what is the general procedure? I mean, what factors need to be fulfilled before a ship is given the green light to head out?
Well, essentially, the procedures are quite straightforward. The ship has to maintain sufficient stability for the voyage, and there are requirements both in Korea and internationally that the ship has sufficient stability. Because of the quick turnaround, there is unlikely to be any outside inspection of the securing of any cars and cargo. And it is not a requirement. That is a matter for the ship's officers and master to ensure before the ship sails. And the rest of the departure requirement is essentially paperwork, things like passenger lists, crew lists, and manifests for the cargo.
Well, Captain Noble, prosecutors here are investigating whether the ferry carried enough ballast water to accommodate the extra cargo. So could you explain to us what the ballast is and how does it affect the vessel navigating through the sea?
Yes, indeed. Ballast is the expression used for ships to carry additional weight on board, nowadays usually seawater in tanks. And the ballast is used to weigh the ship down and also to trim the ship. So you fill certain areas of the ship with water. They're called ballast tanks. And that allows the ship to sail at a convenient draft. The big problem with ballast is the tanks really should be full or empty. If they are not full or empty, in other words, slack, that can affect the stability of the ship.
Now, Captain Noble, I'm sure you have been following the news on the South Korean ferry Capsize, and there are many speculations as to what might have caused this humongous ferry to capsize. Is there one that is the most that makes the most sense to you?
Well, at the moment there are still options, and I'm sure the investigators are looking. If she hit the seabed and water got in that way, that would result in a loss of stability, as clearly happened. If the ship listed over as a result of a sharp turn, water could then enter the ship's hull. But the ship should be designed and should be of sufficient construction that a sharp turn should not cause her to capsize.
Well, there were some changes and upgrades and renovations they did, which may not have helped in this steering of the ship. But we're going to move on to another question, Captain Noble. The search and rescue efforts, it's in the 8th day. So what steps remains for us here in Korea?
I'm afraid the steps really, as your program has already shown, the recovery of the deceased.
Captain Noble? All right, it looks like our connection got cut off there. That was Captain John Noble, Director of UK-based Constellation Marine Services. We'd like to thank him for speaking with us, and we apologize for that technical glitch. Now, the tragic Sewol-ho ferry has made all of us take notice of the importance of safety awareness in this country.
It's also gotten the attention of the government, which is stepping up pressure on public facilities and transportation operations to conduct thorough safety checks. For more, here's our Lee Seung-jae.
The Sewol-ho ferry tragedy has forced the government to take a look at the level of safety awareness and preparedness in the nation. To make sure such accidents are prevented in the future, the government said Wednesday that it plans to carry out intensive safety checks on all major industrial and transportation facilities in the nation. The inspections were ordered by President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Chung Hong-won. Improper safety inspections have been blamed as one of the reasons for the disaster. Some of the facilities that will be subject to checks include industrial complexes, trains, ports, tunnels, and bridges, as well as ships like the Sewol-ho ferry. The nationwide inspection is set to begin on May 9th, but the government will first ask the government and civilian operators of such facilities to carry out voluntary safety checks for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, a new bill called the Student Safety Act was passed by a subcommittee within the National Assembly on Wednesday. It would require all schools to conduct a safety education process before going on school trips. In addition, the Culture Ministry also hopes to make Student Safety Day a national holiday. They plan to speak with family members of 5 students who were killed last summer while attending a Marine Corps camp for help organizing it. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, the search and rescue operation continues off Korea's southwestern coast.
And to see how nature will be cooperative or not in the near future, today on Tomorrow, that is, Michelle Park joins us for a look at the conditions down near Jindo. Michelle, the weather has been good and cooperative so far in the area of rescue, so over the past few days. But what about the future? What about tomorrow?
Well, it was a favorable day today, like you said, Daniel, in Jindo, with good visibility in the waters. Now, the sea conditions were also favorable due to the neap tide periods, which put the heights of the waves down to around 1 meters. Now, one more slow tide for today is left at 8:35 p.m. tonight local time. Now, within these periods, the tides will drop to below a half a meter for an hour. Now, the current temperature of the water in Jindo is at 11.8 degrees Celsius, with the winds blowing at 3.6 meters per second and the height of the waves at 0.6 meters. These calm conditions are expected to continue out until Friday. Now, the conditions looks to be even better tomorrow in terms of the winds and currents. Now, also we can expect the clear skies and clear visibility. Now, and for the rest of the nation, we can expect a warm, sunny day tomorrow. Rather hot for some regions with highs of up to 28 degrees. Now, although the mornings and nights are still on the chilly side. Well, that's all I have at this moment, and back to you guys.
Thank you, Michelle, for that, and thank you for joining us. Our steady coverage on the nation's search and rescue efforts in Korea's ferry disaster continues here on Arirang News.
Well, join us again at the top of the hour for more updates on this rescue search operation and, of course, the investigation that continues into the Sewol-ho incident.
Right, and we'd like to say our thoughts and prayers from all of us here at Arirang TV are with the victims and the families and those who were affected by this ferry disaster.